Have you ever queued for Dungeon Finder, patiently waited for a full group and entered the dungeon, only to see a loading screen that fills you with dismay? Everyone who has played World of Warcraft has a dungeon or two that they hate with a passion, so here are my top 5 worst dungeons of World of Warcraft. At number 5, the Trial of the Champion. Trial of the Champion suffers from the same problems as its raid. Firstly, you're stuck in one room with wave mechanics. Oh joy! Kill mobs, fight boss, and repeat. The worst though was the first boss, in which you have to use mounted combat, which nobody liked at all. Also, the bosses weren't exactly fun after that either, and well, the announcer was just over the top annoying. In fact, screw it, I'm moving on. Thinking about this place is giving me a stomach ulcer. At number 4, the Arcatraz. While I have stated in my top 5 favorite dungeons that I loved the difficulty of heroic kata dungeons, I cannot say the same for BC, and the worst of the lot for me was the Arcatraz. Many dungeons had to be cleared just to get to this place, and you could step inside and then you were greeted by insane mob packs and bosses that seemed to have been spawned in hell itself. It was so difficult that fully geared raiders would avoid the place, as it was too long and could easily wipe them numerous times. Also, by this point in the expansion, the architecture had been played out and didn't feel fresh at all. And a tie for number 3 with Black Morass and the Violet Hold. Wave mechanics. Whose idea was this? In the Black Morass, you got to protect Medivh while he opens the Dark Portal. This sounds cool, right? Well, it was, for that first 2 minutes of the dungeon, until you realize that you're going to be spending the rest of the dungeon in the exact same spot. The entire dungeon is just lifted straight out of the Swamp of Sorrows and is incredibly bland. This is the very definition of boring, as you stand there with wave after wave after wave of them coming at you, and then you fight a boss, and then move on. And apparently it wasn't simple enough to just include it in this dungeon. The next expansion, when they knew better, they decided to introduce the Violet Hold, a prison for the enemies of the Kirin Tor. And apparently, an entire prison just needs one room. So once again, you fight wave of mobs, again and again, and then you fight a boss, and then you repeat that 3 freaking times. But the worst part of this is getting brought back into Legion. They're bringing Violet Hold back. But why? With the exact same style of play. What the frick is going on here?
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
At number 2, Gnomeregan. Gnomeregan is like that friend you had as a kid that you were kind of forced to play with. Once you hit its level bracket, prepare to run it a lot. But it's not just that you were forced into it. Its tone disturbed me and the architecture was just so damn boring. But that's not the worst part, it's the groups. Half the team wants to do the full run, no idea why, and the other half wants to speed through it. And no one knows where to jump off so that you won't die. Seriously, just hit the gear, guys, that's all you need to do. It's as if everybody turns into an asshole the second that they're ported into it. I could go on forever about why I hate this place, but in essence, it's boring, long, and the architecture is dull. If this dungeon gets redone as a heroic, I will burn down Blizzard. And at number 1 spot, the Oculus. Come on, you knew it was going to be there. Oculus is a universally hated dungeon, so it should come as no surprise that it's being at the top of my list. This dungeon forced you to constantly swap between your usual skill set and that of a dragon's, which actually sounds really cool, but for some reason it just didn't work at all. The dungeon layout forced you to do it so much that the pacing of the entire instance was completely ruined. Not to mention the horror of someone choosing the wrong Drake and screwing it up for everyone. The bosses were also incredibly lame and required either too little effort or, in the case of the last boss and some newbies joining you, way too much effort. The second people joined this dungeon, it was very often that they would instantly leave the instance. Blizzard decided that they had to take action to try and fix this, so they made a Drake drop from the very last boss with a 2% drop rate, and this really did not help things as people kept on leaving. All I can say is thank God that this dungeon is not getting a remake. Thank you so much for watching my video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my top 5 favorite dungeons from World of Warcraft. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.